Hi, this is Risa and welcome to my Stitch Along series. Don't forget to click on the subscribe button if you've been finding my videos useful. Today I'm going to stitch a ribbon embroidery kit called Garden Flowers by Irina Podolyak, which I bought in her shop Silk Ribbon Kits on Etsy. As you know, all of my Stitch Alongs accompany the kit reviews that I do on my channel first. So here's the kit. You can click on the link above to watch the kit review itself. Let's get started. As you may know, I like to start my ribbon embroidery by tacking a muslin cloth at the back. So get out a piece of muslin cloth the size of the pattern and lay it at the back of the main fabric. You'll need a sewing thread to run running stitches along the edges of the pattern. Just make sure you don't pierce the actual pattern itself. You can stitch the muslin from the back of the main fabric, but what I like to do is to flip it over so that when I'm stitching I can actually see the pattern on the main fabric and avoid stitching it. So here I've tacked on all sides and one running through the center of the main fabric. Now leave your ends free, not knotted, because you'll be removing them when you finish the pattern. So I've framed the cloth on a hands-free rectangular frame, and I'm going to start by stitching the stems and the leaves with the 4mm silk ribbon here. First I'm going to iron the ribbon with a mini straightening iron here, and it's really easy to do and good to have around if you're going to do ribbon embroidery more often. You just run the ribbon through the straightening iron and then cut a 45-degree angle so you'll be able to thread the needle. Now the needle that came, or the needles that came in the kit, were 2 Chanel needles, and I'm going to use the smaller of the 2. You insert the pointed tip of the ribbon into the needle and then insert the needle in the center of the ribbon and pull through to arrest the ribbon. Now at the other end you fold the ribbon and insert the needle in the center and pull through again, and this will create a nice little square knot that will be arrested when you start stitching. So we're going to start here with a twisted stitch. So here I am just twisting the ribbon. Just make sure it's smooth and not lumpy. And once you've done that, you essentially just insert the needle in the fabric like so. So I'm going to do a few more here. Wherever I see sort of stems in the image, I'm going to use this twisted stitch. Now at the back, all you need to do is insert the needle between the muslin and the main fabric, and that's why I like using muslin cloth as a backing cloth. And you snip off the end and leave a tail, which you will then stitch to the muslin cloth when you finish the embroidery pattern. So here I'm stitching a ribbon stitch where you insert the needle in the center of the ribbon and you pull through carefully so that you get a nice pointed tip like so. So wherever I see these flat leaves, I'm going to use ribbon stitch and twisted ribbon stitch for the stems. So the kit didn't come with sufficient 4mm green ribbon, so I'm going to use some green ribbon that I had in stock and I had bought from Dee Van Niekerk's website to finish off the stems and the leaves in the pattern. Moving on to stitching the ferns, I'm going to use 1 strand of the green floss that's in the kit to stitch stem stitches along the center of the fern, and then I'm going to use random straight stitches for the leaves of the fern. Here you can see I've finished some of the ferns with the random straight stitches with the light green floss. I haven't started on the ferns here at the back because they're mainly using dark green floss, and now I'm going to move on to stitching dark green straight stitches to mix in with the light green here. I've decided I'm going to finish off all the thread work in the pattern, so I'm going to now move on to using one strand of the purple thread that's in the kit to stitch stem stitches along the edges of the purple vase. Now just make sure that when you use a hands-free stand that you take out the needle always on the same side of the thread so that you get an even look when you stitch the stem stitch. I'm going to start with the central yellow flower for the ribbon work, and I'm going to cut out 5 centimeters of the 20 mm yellow variated ribbon in the kit. And what I'm going to do is stitch running stitches along these 3 edges, as you can see. So essentially you take one strand of the yellow floss that's in the kit and simply run running stitches like I'm doing here, first on the short side and then along the long side of the ribbon, and then again on the short side. And once you've done doing that, you can pull through at one end and arrest the threads. Don't pull through too tight because you want to have just nice soft folds in the ribbon to imitate the petals of the flower. So I've now stitched 5 of these little petals, which I will then arrange around the flower and make sure the petals overlap each other when you stitch it. So that's how it's going to look like when I'm done stitching. Simply stitch these petals on to the fabric by using small invisible stab stitches. The kit comes with 4 mm scarlet ribbon to finish the center of the flower. However, I suspect it's not long enough or sufficient enough to be able to finish the French nuts, but I'm gonna stitch it anyways and see how far I get with the length of the ribbon that I have. Here it is, that's the end of the ribbon. Certainly not sufficient to finish the center, so I'm going to put this aside and perhaps use my own ribbons or thread to fill the center. Next I'm going to stitch the magenta flowers, and I'll alternate between ribbon stitches like so and straight stitches. So with ribbon stitch, you just insert the needle in the center of the ribbon and then pull through carefully so you get a pointed edge, and then behind the fabric you just come out at the top and go back straight in the center of the flower with a straight stitch, and then alternate again with a ribbon stitch and then a straight stitch. So this way you kind of save a little bit of the ribbon length that you may have in the kit. Now in the center I'm going to stitch French knots with 3 strands of the yellow thread that's available, and I'm going to start with 5 to 4 loops in the center and then progressively reduce the loops of the French knot to about 3 and then finally to 2. So I want to get a nice puffy center and sort of taper out towards the side of the flower this way. Next I'm going to stitch the fallen yellow petals here, and it's the same technique I used to stitch the yellow flower. So I'm going to just run running stitches on 5 centimeter length of the yellow ribbon, pull it through to get the folds of the ribbon, and then stitch it on to the fabric. So I'm going to stitch the first layer and then the second layer on top of it. Using 7mm orange variated ribbon, I'm going to start stitching the orange flowers in the flower arrangement. Starting with ribbon stitches here, as you can see. And then at the end, I'm going to do an inverted stitch to give it sort of that tulip look. And with 1 strand of yellow thread, I'm going to stitch that petal in place. Moving on to stitching the light purple iris, I'm going to use a 20 mm silk ribbon, and I'm going to use a wider chenille needle. So this is a number 13. As you can see, it's much thicker, and so it will allow the wide ribbon to get through the fabric. It's not included in the kit, it's something I have in stock already. Now, to stitch the iris, I'll start by stitching a lazy daisy here. So when you come out of the fabric, you insert it back in close to where you came out, and then up towards the top of the petal, like so, and then insert it back into the fabric. So don't pull too hard. You do want to leave a little bit of slack so that you form a nice fold for the petal. So once again, same thing, doing another lazy daisy stitch at the bottom of the iris. Now I'm going to take out the ribbon at the center of the flower and do an inverted stitch or inverted ribbon stitch here on either side of the two lazy daisy stitches. Now I'm going to stitch the iris here with the dark purple 20 mm ribbon that's in the kit, and this is done by just simply stitching ribbon stitches and an inverted stitch. So ribbon stitches here, using the 4 mm yellow ribbons for the center here, and then twisted stitches to finish off the flower. So here is a twisted stitch, and then you can sort of arrest it in place by using one strand of purple thread. Coming back to the center of the yellow flower, I've decided I'm going to use two different types of floss to stitch the French knots here, and I'm going to use an orange 740 and a rust color number 22 DMC floss, and I'm going to combine it with 2 strands of orange and 1 strand of the rust color to get sort of this orangish red center for the flower. Then move on to 3 strands of orange and 1 strand of red as I move out towards the edges of the flower, or the edge of the center of the flower. And I'm doing this because I want a flat center and more profile towards the edges. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it was useful. Don't forget to click on the subscribe, like, and notification buttons to keep track of new videos that I'll upload in my channel. See you again next time. Bye bye.